game number 1 between Fnatic and CLG, both of these teams making a huge turnaround in this tournament. Going to be a lot of fun to watch both of them.
And look at Fnatic just immediately target banning out Shen and Malphite. That's going to limit one of the jungle options from CLG, as well as really limit what Hotshot's going to be able to play in that top lane. He did recently return. He still has a very decent-sized champion pool. However, banning out that Shen, banning out that Malphite, like I said, it reduces 2 options right there, and it also reduces the split push that CLG.NA
Rengar as
really
well
likes to fall back on.
They completely ban him out. So, I mean, yes, he will play, you know, Cho'Gath. We've seen some Nidalee, but I actually haven't seen him play it that much recently. But those are definitely, you know, really targeted. And it's interesting, you know, poking at Hotshot as a potential weak link in this team, but Chalster getting Lee Sin, and we've seen that before. His Lee Sin is so devastatingly strong. They grabbed Nunu as well, which I'm wondering if that's going to preempt a Caitlyn pick from Doublelift, because that's actually the only time that they run Vayne, or Caitlyn, is with that Nunu. And Vayne and Nunu, it works very well in the late game, but early on in the game, in some matchups, it actually really struggles in lane. So I think that's probably going to be a Caitlyn. It
probably is going to be Caitlyn. We've seen CLG.NA run this composition for a while, and I believe when, I forget if it was Locodoco or Doublelift or both of them that were being interviewed recently, but they said that one thing is they're going to run the Nunu Caitlyn lane until teams that they play against learn how to adapt and play against it. They said that it's not necessarily their favorite lane to play either, but especially in the North American scene, a lot of teams really have trouble dealing with it. We saw Fnatic in the meantime. They're going to be picking up Cho'Gath, potentially going to be going in the jungle.
All of those Hotshot picks.
Yeah.
Fnatic's grabbing them all up. And
one thing's still on the table, though. Hotshot could potentially pick up Olaf.
Right, that is true. You know, he does have a couple more that are still on the table. But one thing that I think is interesting, going back to if this were a Vayne Nunu lane, then Sona is actually a lane that does very well against that. And we've seen that some in this tournament with Wei Zhao. They run Corki and Sona to shut down that lane. But you know, so it gives them that significant harass, and it also gives them nice kiting potential, you know, really great team fight potential. So there is the Caitlyn, and they go with TF as well. So, you know, the Caitlyn and Lee Sin, that is a super aggressive comp. That means they're going all in. They top it off with a TF. CLG.NA, they're going for early game aggression to just bully around Fnatic and never allow Reckless into a good position. And as a result, he's not comfortable playing Vayne potentially. He might just go with that Ezreal, which has been a common pick of him, of his. But, you know, it wasn't the pick that beat TPA.
One of the things, too, is Caitlyn has a very strong early game, falls off a bit in the mid game, sort of like a Tristana, maybe not as hard as Tristana, but then really resurges into the late game where she can deal out a large chunk of damage. When you wind up picking up somebody like that Vayne that has an abusable early set of levels, even if you have the Sona back there, just sit back and poke and really stop some aggression.
That's a very weak lane.
You're basically weaker than minions at one point.
Right.
So you wind up having the potential of getting those headshots from Caitlyn who can harass you from the brush. If Nunu lands an Ice Blast on you, you're going to have to burn your flash. If you don't have it available from a Lee Sin gang, you're going to wind up dying. So I'm not surprised to see them going with a different AD carry here.
And there is the Kog'Maw, and it's interesting. Caitlyn has a favorable matchup in Vayne in this situation, but I was talking with Reckless, and I was like, yo, Reckless, what happens when they ban out your Vayne? Because we haven't seen a lot of diversity from him in AD carries. He's played Vayne and Ezreal in the past, and he said, well, my Kog'Maw, it's just as strong as my Vayne. If someone takes Vayne, or if they ban it out, I'm going to grab Kog'Maw, and I know I'm going to be dealing, you know, more than enough damage for my team, and that's absolutely true. You know, coming into the tournament, I thought that Vayne and Kog'Maw were going to be the #1 and 2. We actually haven't seen a lot of Kog'Maw so far in this tournament. He's been kind of absent, but if they can, you know, hold off for him, then that can be very strong. And he has the range. And then look at CLG's team. They actually don't have great champions at diving onto the backline. Lee Sin can a little bit, but not really. It's more of a frontline team, which is actually, it plays to the strengths of Kog'Maw.
It really does. And just taking a look at the fact that Kog'Maw has been picked up, we were talking about just briefly before how Caitlyn struggles in the mid game. Kog'Maw might be a very late game kind of champion, but he's got that living artillery that can abuse Caitlyn in her weaker stage of the game, and this is something I like to see. I remember back at WCG Guangzhou, I think it was, where Hotshot was split pushing top as Galio for absolutely forever. And when he finally did join the team, it was literally every single game you could predict. Hotshot would get 200 CS, they would group up in the mid lane, they would get one giant engage with that Galio ultimate and just perfectly position everything, annihilate the enemy teams, and just march into the base and win.
That is a really interesting strategy that we're going to be seeing here. So it's a very aggressive strategy. He has the teleport as well. So CLG, they have a very scary team. Fnatic, they They have the team to deal with it. So, you know, Sona gives them, they have a great kiting team. They can sit there and be very reflexive and then just allow their front line to mow down CLG. Like Jace, Orianna, and Kog, the longer those fights go on, you know, the more damage and whatnot they're going to do. Then Cho'Gath, as a jungler, he's very safe. He clears very efficiently, and then he gets tanky earlier, or very early on when the tankiest champions, and then he his ruptures can just completely kite for you. So it's a very strong disengage. I'm actually going to take a look real quick at you know, some of these runes real quick, because this is actually flat AP is the name of the page. It has armor, magic resist. This is Hotshot's Galio page. Just so you guys, if you want to play that top lane Hotshot Galio, I just, you know, want to make sure everyone's ready. 0, 21, and 9, and that's interesting. He gets a lot of mana regen, but he is going to be so incredibly tanky in that lane. And part of that is all of his top laners are banned out for the most part, and Soaz is playing a top lane that for a while was the strongest in the game, and it's one that he kind of originated in that Jace pick. So Hotshot knows, you know, Soaz is perfectly comfortable with that Jace, and he can't allow him to get ahead. So he actually picks a champion that turns it into a farm lane, because Jace will have a very difficult time taking down Galio, and it's really just going to be the two of them AoE clearing the minions.
And the interesting thing is they picked that Galio after they had Orianna, Sona, and Cho'Gath on the team. 3 champions that can very easily disrupt the channeling on the Galio ultimate. So if Sona gets out of there, if Orianna's not in the initial engagement, if Cho'Gath for some reason is able to hit the rupture before Galio hits his channel for his ultimate, it's going to be a really interesting thing to see. Can Hotshot's Galio, you know, can he reprise the role that he had before and he was playing top lane previously, and can he bring about the champion and the powerful spotlight that it was before?
But the thing about their team right now in the Galio is the other 4 members of CLG, they actually have a team between the 4 of them that they can, you know, handle 4v5s fairly effectively. They're very strong, like just them. They don't need Hotshot to do that much. And so they can control team fights. They can have a really great early game advantage, but then Hotshot's role is going to be to shut down that Kog'Maw. And that was one of the things. They didn't have a way of getting in that backline against Kog'Maw. Lee Sin maybe, but against Sona and against, you know, Cho'Gath and all these champions, that's not going to happen. You know, they didn't have a good means of getting that Kog'Maw. So Hotshot in the team fights, he can allow the rest of his team to fight Fnatic, and then his role is going to be to just run into the backline and just, he doesn't even have to ult. If he can ult on Kog'Maw, brilliant. You know, that's great. But primarily, he doesn't even have to do that. He can just run at Kog'Maw, chase Reckless out of the fight. And so, you know, Reckless is going to be scared of that ultimate. He's going to have to run away, and then he's not dealing damage to the rest of CLG. But it's a really exciting team. He can control the top lane and allow for that aggression around the map.
I was kind of contemplating, too, in the picks and bans, they didn't ban out Jax, and that's what I was thinking that CLG was really going to pick so they could dive on top of that Kog'Maw. But thinking about it now, you're going to be able to have a champion that's a little bit more tanky and can resist through the Orianna burst, through the Cho'Gath damage is going to be going done. The only one you really have to worry about is Kog'Maw in that case. Galio's not going to be scaling as much off of HP as, say, Jax would be building with a Trinity Force and then having to build a little bit tanky, going for a Guardian Angel eventually. Galio is going to be more resist heavy than he is HP heavy, so he's actually going to be a good counteraction to the fact that Kog'Maw will be scaling into the later game as everybody gains levels, gains more HP with that Bioarcane Barrage. So this is actually, like you said, as long as Hotshot can just get Reckless out of the fight, CLG's going to have a good time just in a 4v4. They're going to be able to take out some of the members of Fnatic very easily. Hotshot's also not going to die in a straight 1v1 against Kog'Maw, where if Sona or someone else peels for Kog'Maw in that case, they're not really going to be able to, you know, just take out Hotshot super quick as if you were a little bit squishier like Jax happens to be.
Well, we'll see what's going on with this game. Hopefully everything's okay, but it is interesting. Jax, you know, he's that hyper carry late game, but he doesn't have that same strength early on in the game. Galio, you know, he's very strong in the early game. A lot of times he'll fall off later in the game and just become, you know, his ultimate. He's just a CC bot. But mid-game, Galio, we've seen in the past, can be an incredibly dominant champion. It's when his base damage kicks in. Once he hits the max levels on his Q and on his E, so that, you know, he has that great damage, and he's, you know, getting his ultimates. So that's going to be really significant after he's level 11 and, you know, through, you know, level 11 to like 16. But so it's going for an early game. In CLG, they want to win this in the early game. They want to just bully out Fnatic. If the game goes a little bit too long, though, Fnatic, they have the team that will be able to win in the late game. CLG, they need an early advantage. And I don't mean early like, you know, the first 3 minutes, but, you know, by the 20-minute mark, by the 15-minute mark, really, they need to have some sort of gold lead over Fnatic, because Fnatic's team comp for team fights is really brutal, because Cho'Gath, he can control the front line particularly well, and then they have so much range and poke with Jace, Orianna, and Kog'Maw. They're just going to destroy CLG, and then once Kog'Maw gets all the damage he has, if they can't threaten him, and Sona's controlling the front line and Jace is up there as well, Kog's just going to mow them down. So it really is a key for Fnatic to counter off that early strategy from CLG, which probably means early warding for Jelster, because he has been a very aggressive jungler so far. He demands wards. You need to keep an eye on him and make sure that they can't push any early advantages.
He's also been doing a really good job of getting that Oracle's Elixir a bit earlier on in the game and really keeping it. So he can roam out throughout the map. He's going to be able to, of course, to safeguard Iron Will from his own wards to set up those ganks a little bit easier. He's also going to be able to sneak around the map potentially where Fnatic may not have wards in place before he gets that Oracle's Elixir, which is, of course, going to let him ward up the map, give CLG a little bit extra vision. If they can get that vision, they can transition that into a bit of a game advantage overall. What's going to be happening is if you can see where the enemy is and isn't, well, you're going to know exactly where they are. So CLG.NA, like you said, they're going to want to win some sort of team fight, maybe not as soon as the game starts. Probably when they get towards that mid-game stage, that's where they're going to be looking to group up, maybe push some lanes or force some kind of team fight. They can get prime positioning on Fnatic, even if the laning phase, everything is absolutely even, they can get that prime positioning through the vision that Chaucer is going to be giving them and denying the enemy team. They could really pull out ahead, or at least push down some towers and give them that advantage they need to ride into the later stages of the game ahead of that hyper carry Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and there's no drop-off for Caitlyn when you're ahead by a couple thousand gold. She only has single target DPS, so she'll struggle against someone like Cho'Gath later in the game because he's just going to be too tanky for her. But if Double Lift is ahead, it's not going to matter. We are checking real quick guys, to make sure that this game isn't potentially remade. So someone's going to get back to me shortly on that, and we'll let you know. But otherwise, it's going to be a really cool game. I'm really looking forward to it, and see what Rekkles can do, because he had the really impressive performance, but he also I watched a game earlier, Fnatic versus World League. It's the one I go back to because I watched it. So where he was shut down from Wei Zhao, and Double Lift is on that same level. He's an AD carry that can 1v2 that bottom lane. He can just zone out your entire lane by himself, and then later in the game be very effective. So it is going to be interesting to see how Rekkles handles this kind of pressure and if he steps up to the plate.
I think that's why Double Lift fits so well with Caitlyn as an AD carry. Caitlyn, if anybody's actually played Caitlyn, you're always so tempted to harass the enemy because you have such long range, you have such ridiculous damage in the beginning stages of the game, and you can just right-click the enemy champion and they have to be forced out of lane. One of the things that happens is, though, when you're an AD carry as Caitlyn, you sometimes go on the harassment more than you go on the actual CSing, and you'll start to fall behind towards that mid game. That's where Caitlyn starts to fall off, because her harass doesn't become as effective as everybody's starting to get a little bit more itemization and such. And Double Lift just does such a great job of balancing both of them, though.
Yeah, no, he definitely has that balance. And then later in the game, getting the constant auto attacks. I mean, hitting that AD carry efficiency is the way to look at it, where you're not sitting there running around the backline trying to make sure you're alive. He's constantly dealing damage, which it really amps the damage efficiency of CLG in fights. We'll have to see if there's some way we can look at a statistic on that, like damage in fights, but in the future. But I'm kind of curious, at the start of this game, CLG, they actually might go for a lane swap. And we saw Hotshot. He went with a really defensive build. He has the teleport. I don't think that Galio is strong enough to take blue by himself at level 1. Otherwise, I would say he might grab blue buff level 1 and then 1v2 and just use his range farm. But one of the issues is Galio, he runs out of mana pretty quickly early on. So that could be a kind of a concern. But that Caitlyn Nunu lane, we've seen CLG run it mid lane before if they wanted to shut down a lane. We've seen swaps top lane before, so that would give them a great pushing opportunity. And really, Caitlyn Nunu, it's a very strong lane, but Kog and Sona tends to be a pretty safe lane. It's a pretty difficult lane to harass, so if they don't feel that they can shut down Rekkles' farm in that bottom lane, they might just decide to go for objectives and take some turrets.
Well, the thing is, too, if they don't feel like they can shut down Rekkles in the bottom lane, they have the Twisted Fate ultimate. They have Lee Sin, who's going to be extremely mobile across the entire map. You have at least the intimidation factor from that to keep Reckless a little bit on the defensive side. If not, then you have Twisted Fate ultimate potentially coming down. You have Lee Sin, who could come into the fray and just absolutely, you know, roam throughout the map and mess everybody up, basically. You have the threat on the bottom lane. If Hotshot is actually going to be in a 1v1 in top lane, like you said, he's going to turn that into a farm fest. He's going to stay up there. And the thing is, if Jace wants to roam around using that acceleration gate, he's not going to be able to because Hotshot's going to be farming all the time.
All right, guys, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. I'm not getting any information on whether or not this game is remade, so I'm going to go check real quick and you know, make sure that we have this game underway, because they might be sitting in a lobby waiting for us. So we'll be right back real quick, and we'll be underway with game number 1 of CLG.NA versus Fnatic. Thank you. All right, guys, we're back, and we do have this game. It was remade, like I thought, so I think they were sitting there for a while, but we'll be right into this game. We get the Pix bans once again. You know, we've already seen their champions, so, you know, not the most consequential pick bans here. We'll see what they got. Oh, TSM, man, you know, the greatest of all teams, Fnatic, banning out for them.
Oh, I know what they're doing.
Oh. Oh, I see what they're doing. Well, that's a shame.
That's a real shame.
But yeah, we'll see what's going on. You know, and they've had some struggles, but they had a nice showing
way to put it.
in game number 2.
They did actually.
They knew coming in that they were going to struggle. They are definitely looking for some impressive play in the future. But we'll see what both these teams can do. And I'll actually have a little bit more time, so I can maybe check out their Runes and Masteries. I'm wondering if they changed them off real quick, knowing that it's a remake and not wanting their opponents to check them out.
See, one thing I'm really interested in is how much utility both Jace and Galli are going to bring to fights. Galli, of course, has the ultimate ability to zone out. Like you said, he's going to be going on to Kog'Maw. His job is to get him out of the fight. But he also has that Righteous Gust to speed up his allies, which, you know, Jace is going to have with the acceleration gate as well. So positioning is going to be a huge factor throughout the entire game here.
Yeah, so it's I mean, that's going to be the key. You know, they need to keep an eye on TF early on. Orianna actually does really well against TF, so she can push him into the turret. She can, you know, maybe get some kills or something like that. He's very squishy early on if she can catch him out. But you know, the positioning, Fnatic has a very easy team to position. You know, the team fights are very coordinated for their team. I'm really curious to see what CLG is going to do, though, because we've seen like similar play from Moscow 5 with the Lee Sin and TF, and we've seen you know, TF and Lee Sin on both these guys before. Chaucer's been very strong with it, but I'm curious if it's going to be mostly for lane ganks and lane presence, or if they might just do really aggressive invades, you know, through the early portions of the game, where Chaucer goes for a hard invade, steals some jungle from Cho, and then you know, they have the TF support. But it's going to be cool.
They could potentially go for some invades on the blue buff now that you're mentioning it. Like having the Lee Sin that's going to be very mobile and very aggressive in the enemy jungle, being able to pop that Twisted Fate ultimate by the time the blue buff is going to respawn for the side of Fnatic, having Hotshot be able to come down actually, or maybe even teleport in to contest one of those buffs, it could be a really good idea. Or they could use that Twisted Fate ultimate to see when they're going to be going for objectives, when they're going to be going for buffs or ganks, and then transition to things like Dragon, which are going to be helping gold across the board.
Yeah, but we'll see what's going to happen. Definitely really exciting. Both teams, you know, have really proven themselves this tournament, and we'll be able to see what's going to happen game number 1.
I'm getting ready to stop speculating and start spectating.
That's my thought here. We've worn it out a bit, but going to be a cool one. Cleanse on both 80 carries. Double Lift, he really likes that cleanse. I mean, you know, it protects him. He knows that he's going to outplay damage-wise his range against most players, so he just wants to make sure he has that cleanse, so he has the opportunity. Same thing with QSS. He actually doesn't like getting GA. Like, he refuses to get GA in most situations because he just wants to go for that QSS because it gives him the cleanse and allows him to, you know, outplay people in team fights.
It's also a lot cheaper than a Guardian Angel.
It is a lot cheaper than a Guardian Angel, but it doesn't have that armor protection, which could be an issue against Jace's poke or some of these other champions. But he should be able to dodge those and whatnot. We'll see if Fnatic actually makes an invade attempt. They have a very strong level 1 team. So do CLG though, and Nunu in the early levels is just incredible. Like we've seen some CLG fights in the past where they have like level 3 Nunu and just sweep their opponents because they underestimate how strong Nunu is, and they've actually gotten in really quickly. So Fnatic outpacing CLG here. CLG going for a defensive positioning, and Fnatic gets right in the bush.
So we're going to see here Locodoco, brilliant ward over the wall there, is going to find Fnatic. They will take out the ward immediately though, so they're not going to have that little extra vision protection. However, they have deterred Fnatic from doing whatever they were going to do around that blue buff. And
we see right off the start, Hotshot, he's actually sitting down in the bot lane. And so he's going to be playing that passive lane. We've seen him 1v2 a lot in the past. He's pretty comfortable with it. It's a nice, safe passive lane for him. One of the nice things is when he's top lane, he's actually someone that almost always requires his support to ward for him. And that's something like he's known for. He needs help against protection against enemy junglers. Like he can't deal with them. But when he's in that 1v2, he doesn't necessarily need that. He can play more passively, and he's not really threatened at all. So Nunu can maybe hold on to that, and we'll see actually if they're going to defend this, because Fnatic, they're going to make an invade attempt here, and I'm curious to see how CLG is going to react.
This is going to be pretty bad if Fnatic does invade on CLG and contest this blue buff. However, having Soaz teleporting back to go to top lane, this could actually work out in favor of CLG. We saw Big Fat LP over here kind of floating around. Okay, I thought what was going to happen was going to be the support and AD carry in the mid lane, helping leash that blue buff for Hotshot, and then returning to the mid lane, having GG go into the top lane as Twisted Fate to contest against Jace, but it's not going to be that way. So now CLG might be looking in a very bad space here. Hotshot's going to walk into, almost walk in to an entire group of Fnatic.
Yeah, but he knows they actually don't have a lot of lockdown CC. It's only the Cho'Gath Rupture, and if he sees Cho'Gath throw down the Rupture, he's going to flash out of it immediately. So Hotshot actually makes a really smart play there, sitting in that tri-bush, and then he can just check out, see, oh hey guys, they're doing blue, just a heads up. So now CLG, they have the knowledge advantage, and they can make something happen off of that. So going to be exciting to see what's going to happen in these lanes though, because Jace, he tends to be one of the strongest 1v2 laners in the game, and Galio definitely runs out of mana quickly, so that could be a tough one for him.
Minus that blue buff.
See Chouster moving in for that blue.
Yeah, considering his blue buff was jungled away or taken away from him in the jungle, he is going to go over here and counteract by that blue buff. Locodoco with that consume, they're going to be able to take this away really fast. I don't even think Cho'Gath's going to get there before they do it.
Yeah, and Chouster, he went damage before the shield, so he needs the help from Nunu in order to pull, because otherwise he'd get too low. There's the Rupture, he gets the smite, and Chouster's able to get out of there. So because they have the lane swap up there, it gives them the advantage that they needed in order to take that blue. So really nice quick effort from CLG to equalize the fields there. And now Chouster's sitting up in the top. He might be able to get out Soaz here. He's actually coming onto him. He gets the slow, knocking him away, and then the flash from Soaz. He's able to back out.
The Cho'Gath's going to come in here, lands Rupture on the Chouster. He did burn the flash, stealing away that blue buff, but they're not going to pursue there. So if 2 flashes have been burned and the blue buffs have been equalized on either side, so pretty much coming out even in those exchanges there.
Yeah, so Cho'Gath just keeping an eye on him, but we'll see how that lane has progressed. And one interesting thing that we might see here, that I kind of talked about with Freak in the previous game, the 1v2, when you have this 1v2 lane, around 4 minutes, it's one of the most common things to see a jungle gank. And you can push the lane right into the turret, you can pick him up. Jace actually just recalled, so he's still full life. But Chouster, I've actually seen in the past, as opposed to going for that, if he knows that the enemy jungler is going to defend against it, sometimes he'll just go for an aggressive counter jungle, and he'll just, not even try for that. But we'll see what he does. He is positioning himself down towards the bottom lane, so if Cho tries anything against Galio, Galio for one would be almost too tanky, but Lee Sin could maybe make his way down, and Hotshot's actually just not even going for it. He's just going to recall. It's a good opportunity for him. He'll probably have to use his teleport. He's going to miss out on a lot of CS here, but he's able to pick up a couple of mana potions, 3 mana potions, and 5 health potions. So that's basically just going to sustain him, where he can sit in that lane forever.
Chouster is motioning towards this mid lane. Will wind up finding Cyanide as he comes in the mid lane as well. There's the Tempest in the cripple. Yellow card goes off. Gold card goes off. Big Fat LP is going to get the stun on the Cyanide. Has to burn the flash away. Red buff taken away. It's not going to be enough. Xpeke actually has to burn his flash as well. And that is 2 more summoner spells burned from the side of Fnatic.
Yeah, a lot of pressure from Chouster early on, and great awareness of where his positioning needs to be. He's sitting in that mid lane expecting Cho'Gath to come in, because that's what you want to do against TF. You want to be able to pick him off, get a kill. And now Chouster zoning Xpeke it gives Big Fat some free damage there, but burning those flashes, that's devastating for that lane. And that early jungle pressure, could potentially be the difference in this game. Like, that's what CLG's hoping is going to be. They're hoping that it's going to be the difference. So as I guess I'll say he's enjoying the bubble pop on the main stage, but maybe not quite so much in this case.
One thing that Fnatic's got to be careful of is this CLG.NA roaming up to the top lane. Soaz has no flash available because they burned it in that earlier engagement. There's a ward in the brush, so he can play a little bit passively, but with 4 members here and the lockdown from Twisted Fate's gold card, Soaz is going to have to get out of there, but now this tower is free reign for CLG.
Well, and they have the ward there, so it's a really smart play from Fnatic. Cyanide, I believe, leaving the ward. I guess Jace brought the ward up with him. So he went back, put the ward there, and it protected him against that tower dive because they're going to lose the tower regardless. But fortunately, they didn't lose him. And now Fnatic, they're actually responding by trying to get some damage mid as well. But it does mean that Soaz is a little bit behind. You know, he's falling a little bit behind. They have the team gold that's really nice for CLG, and that's exactly what CLG wanted to do. But the coolest thing about it is one of the new things that we've noticed from CLG, alongside Chowster being a really just dominant jungler. I mean, one of, you know, arguably the top junglers in the world now. We've seen that it's helped Big Vat out a lot too, because they've been roaming together a lot. And Big Vat, I remember back in Season 1 when he was considered like the greatest player in League of Legends, and he would outplay every opponent. That hasn't happened for quite some time. He's turned into more of a passive laner, and that's partially indicative of the mid lane. Usually the mid lane, it's very difficult to get advantages. It's usually is farming advantages. You just farm. But now with Chowster, with such an aggressive jungler, which is a change for them, Big Vat, he's been roaming with Chowster a lot, and they've been able to pick up a lot of advantages in games with that combination. Yeah,
it's really good to see that Big Vat has come into more of his own former glory. But,
they're all setting up bot. Caitlyn and Nunu are coming down. TF's coming down as well. Reckless has to watch out.
Hotshot's going to take a lot of damage. Twisted Fate does teleport in. Gold card has been available. Reckless is not going to wind up getting first blood on Hotshot, but TF's going to reprise the role by picking up a kill on Sona. Reckless now in a pretty bad spot. Rupture going off from Cho'Gath, but Loco Doka's there. He's going to throw down those Ice Blasts. Even with that Void Ooze, it's not going to be enough. Kalma not going to get the slow in time. Doublelift going to pick up a kill there.
Yeah, so the bait from Hotshot, you know, he put himself in a dangerous spot. He almost got out of there, but it forced the flashes from both Sona and from Kog'Maw in order to chase him down and get that kill, which sealed the deal. Like, it completely sealed their fate. And as a result, they have an advantage in that bot lane. So it was a really nice play all around as a team, and it was a great timing push. And that's something that we're starting to see from CLG. Like, it's not just, you know, hey guys, I guess, you know, we'll push this lane now, which is something like, it used to feel a lot of NA teams, it would be kind of lackadaisical, like, all right, what are we going to do now? I guess we can take Dragon maybe. Now CLG, you see these timings from them where they're really concerted efforts, and it's like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is our game plan. But Fnatic, they're still into this. I mean, they have that dominant late game, and we've seen Cyanide just a second behind them. XPK also coming down from the mid lane. So a lot of it's going to be on XPK out of that mid lane to bring back Fnatic and shut down that TF and, you know, win like maybe one fight that brings them back into this.
Judging by the looks of this, you're talking about the timing pushes and everything. Taking down that tower, having that push down in bottom lane in order to get those kills and to force a little bit of pressure on the tower. At the same time, they were re-swapping lanes. Hotshot did die, yes, but he got a chance to go back and buy while his lane had already swapped backwards. Because of this end with Big Fat LP coming down as well, they were able to pick up some kills, apply pressure on the tower, most importantly, kill off the enemy AD carry so he's not able to farm in that transition period that Doublelift is doing. Doublelift now had a chance to wind up getting some tower damage, go back, buy extra items with the gold he's acquired from those kills, and still has a CS advantage on Kog'Maw.
Yeah, and not only a CS advantage, but an experience advantage. He's a half a level ahead. That's not that significant, but you know, he can start to work on him. And Galio's in a pretty safe position in the top lane, except that Soaz is chasing him down. He has the damage. If he can just get in range, Hotshot's barely able to get out of there. So a little bit of a concern. But once he's up against the turret, he'll be able to range farm. And because he used his teleport very early on in the game, his teleport's back up again. So he can use that to help his team some. They were able to control the blue this time for XPK, though. So, you know, Chowster not able to get in that time. Cho'Gath just a really strong control jungler. And that blue is going to be key. But TF coming down bot once again.
Looks like Reckless has been the target. Crescendo goes off across Loco Doka. Will stop the absolute zero, but there's just way too much damage from all three champions from CLG. Doublelift nets himself his second kill of the game.
Yeah, so that is absolutely huge. They cannot allow Big Fat to free roam like this because Doublelift and their whole team, this early game team that CLG has, they will take those advantages and they will run with it. Now Sona and Rated being pushed off the turrets, and look at this aggressive pushing strategy. 10 minutes down, and we have 2 turrets down. They're just like completely coordinated. This is, you know, something we had seen from CLG in the past at OGN, aggressive early tower pushing, but they always said they didn't know what to do with it. Like, as a team, they would take early towers, and then they would just falter because they didn't know what to do with the advantage, and the enemy team would be able to free farm their way back into the game with the towers down. But something that, one of the first things that like happened when Loco came in the team, I remember everyone knew about it. There was a big argument on stream where they were discussing this, and Loco's like, I will teach you. And I'm just kidding about the Loco thing, but you know, their whole team, you know, they've been working on taking these advantages and driving them home. It's a 3K gold advantage, and that's going to be really devastating for Fnatic right now.
Well, now if you're on the side of Fnatic, you have to wonder about this. Okay, our top lane is going to be a farm fest and our tower is already down. Do we try to pressure Hotshot? But at the same time, Hotshot's been leveling up that Righteous Gust, so he has a way to quickly escape. Yep. He also has that ultimate where if you decide to engage on Hotshot, you have to worry about, is Lee Sin lurking in the corner? Is Twisted Fate going to teleport in and really turn this one around? Fnatic's going to have to decide, do we stay on our lanes and try to farm up a little bit, or do we group up, try to take that Dragon global objective, sneak it in from CLG, or see if CLG burns that Twisted Fate ultimate? Do we go in and try to take this objective? Because they need some sort of gold advantage to bring themselves back into this before they fall too far behind. And
now it's kind of interesting. N-Rated is moving into the mid lane, and we know that Orianna can effectively harass down TF, but they're really trying to put a lot of pressure on Big Fat because he's free roaming right now. They can't allow that to happen. Reckless, even if Sona were down here, he would be zoned out of this lane. You know, he would have to wait for them to push back into him. So there's not really a miss for N-Rated to not be there. Jouster, you know, jumping over the wall, he drops the ward down, trying to get in real quick, but now they're pushing down this mid turret, and this could really help Fnatic get back into this.
This is what Fnatic's reaction is going to be. They're going to push out this mid lane, which will give them a little bit more control through their own jungle towards that Dragon area, although they are going to back off from this one because of the wave pulling from GG over here. But if they put pressure on this mid lane tower, they push it down. This is one of the most important lanes in the game because you're going to be able to get the direct access to your enemy base. It's the shortest way there, and since you are on the blue side, you have a little bit more control, like I said, over your own jungle area in towards that Dragon.
Oh, but Big Fat coming up top is able to grab Soaz. They pick him up very quickly, and that's one of the issues with being so aggressive, trying to bully around Galio when he's such a safe lane. But now, as a result, Fnatic, they might try and pressure this, but CLG's kind of zoning him here. And it was kind of interesting with the early damage that Doublelift had, having that BF sword and the Vamp Scepter, he was actually tanking the turret, the Dragon a little bit, and now he's full up health. So they were just going to see if they could solo it out if Fnatic didn't respond. Once they saw Cho'Gath come in, they're like, oh yeah, we'll back off because Cho's going to steal this easily. But still, it puts pressure on them, and you see both top and bottom split. Fnatic, they're just not going to have it though, and they're pushing right down this mid lane, so they take a nice advantage. But the concern is if CLG is able to split the top and the bottom, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Fnatic to try and counter push against them, which is going to open up ganking opportunities for TF.
And we were mentioning before, now that, you know, the gank went down in top lane and Twisted Fate ultimate was burned, they responded by taking objective in the mid lane with that tower. However, they weren't able to knock out Loco, they weren't able to take out Doublelift or push him away. CLG.NA is just not being afraid of Fnatic because they know that they're in the lead here. They respond by split pushing those two top lanes, making Fnatic spread out their forces thin so they have to defend those two lanes again, and then collapse on that Dragon, knowing that, okay, you took out the mid tower, you have a little bit more free reign around this middle Dragon jungle area. But now you guys are so split up, we're just going to take those 4 members. GG actually went back to buy, immediately went down to Dragon. They grouped up together as a team, took the objective, and now Fnatic, they're going to come over here. They're going to realize he's gone.
Stuck. He's going to go down the flash, the Q over the wall, and Jouster, they're going to drop him very quickly. There's the Doublelift ult. N-Rated actually using his ult to try and get himself out of there, but there's the ward. He uses his ultimate, picks him up. Jouster, no, just barely can't grab it. The slow finally dropping him, and they will back off. And CLG now, they might be able to take this mid turret off of this. And I think it's interesting if you look at some of the items from CLG. We know they have an aggressive early game team at this point. The Rupture almost comboing with XPK's ultimate. But Galio in particular, a lot of times you see Galio go with Chalice and early armor in order to win and sustain lanes. He's actually going for a build that's more for out of lane. He has the Merc Treads. You know, the Heart of Gold's good regardless. He did get the Cloth Armor to help him against Jace, but the Dorans and the Mercury Treads are more so to be able to win team fights around the map. So that's something that, like, they have an aggressive early game team. He's not that concerned about losing to Jace. You know, he's still farming up decently, and he's just expecting once he hits a team fight, he wants to be able to just blow Fnatic out of the water.
and Fnatic's going to have to keep this in mind too. Hotshot slowly approaching level 11. Once he gets that level 2 of the ultimate, he's going to wind up dealing a little bit more damage. He'll have a little bit more time, which he's going to be able to crowd control the team down that he does hit with it. And Fnatic already on the back, but that middle tower actually very, very low. Once Hotshot gets that level 11 and we see CLG grouping up for that one objective they're going to go for again, you know, the Twisted Fate ultimate's available. If they decide to gank somebody, if they gank Soaz again, and with that Twisted Fate ultimate burn, Fnatic may respawn by trying to push elsewhere on the map. CLG's just going to group up. They're going to take down that low HP tower.
And this is such a significant pickup for Cyanide to grab that Oracles, because if you looked at the ward coverage right before he had it for CLG, they had wards in their entire jungle. He still misses a couple, but you know it's going to be tough to grab them all. But yeah, so Cyanide, he's going to be able to give themselves some of that map control back, because the concern was with those aggressive wards, CLG was in a position where they could just start forcing fight after fight and diving after Fnatic in their own jungle, and then their gold lead might have been just insurmountable.
That's something we talked about in that speculation pause period we had, how much of a benefit that Chowster on Lee Sin was going to be for CLG just strictly through vision. So now that Cyanide has the Oracle's Elixir, Fnatic might be able to grab a little bit of footing, but if CLG.NA is going to be able to snipe out one or two members, they can get that Oracle's Elixir down on Cyanide. It's going to be devastating for the presence in this game for Fnatic.
Oh, and Lee Sin, he's actually coming in behind. See if he can maybe catch out XPK, circling around behind the red buff to join up with his team. But they are actually going to group mid, and with the 4 of them there, it's going to be tough to defend this. They do have great wave clearing, but it doesn't matter. Double lift, he's poking down, and the Rupture not being used on the minions, it means that it's just 2 hits away, which means the next turret, or the next push, will be able to drop that turret. So really nice play from them. And then I was actually just, thinking back with that Oracles, one of the benefits of Cho is the fact that he is, one of the best champions in the game to get Oracles on, because he's so tanky early on, and he has the Rupture to get out. It's very safe for him to keep it. So one concern for Fnatic is if they lose that Oracles, then that could be just GG. Like, that would be such a goal disadvantage for them. But Cho, he should be pretty safe in that situation.
We had 5 members of Fnatic in the mid lane defending against this, but it looks like Peke realizes that Hotshot GG has been split pushing that top lane for a long time already. Waves of minions slowly approaching the tower, uses the dissonance and the command attack to clear this out. And now that CLG has Fnatic split up, they're not going to be completely defending this mid lane. They could potentially go in and push this down. Locodoco's taking this opportunity to go towards that Baron area, ward, check for those wards, make sure that nothing is covered over there by Fnatic. And CLG, like you said, if they're going to be able to take out the Oracle's Elixir on Cyanide, then Fnatic's already in a very, very bad spot, because Cho'Gath, huge beefy champion. So they're going to have to be very keen on the fact that that's going to be a good judge of how far they are behind and what they need to do to get back into this game. They get into a team fight and Cho'Gath winds up living, or they wind up picking off 1 or 2 members of CLG. They'll be like, okay, we're doing something right. We know what we have to do now. Man. If not, then, well, they're not in a good place, and they're going to have to really rethink what they're going to be doing.
But look at all the pressure they've had on Fnatic, because Fnatic haven't left their lanes for minutes now. And CLG, they are going for this Baron. Locodoco using the Nunu ultimate just to get some more damage. Double lift, he can attack over the wall as that Caitlyn. He has enough range, but he has to get in there because they're taking a little bit too much damage. So he's actually going to tank for them. And then Chowster dropping out as well. They're going to be able to take this, but Fnatic, it seems like they might be coming up. It's a little bit too late, and XPK and N-rated, they can't get it. That is an 18-minute Baron for CLG to go with their 6k gold lead, and that is going to be really brutal for Fnatic.
It was kind of a risky call from CLG. We saw how low all the members got, but because Hotshot split pushed the top lane, they had the pressure mid lane, they checked for the wards. Cyanide was nowhere near there to see any of the ward coverage because he had to stay in lane the entire time, and CLG just did a really, really good job of making sure they were safe and secure with that risky move.
But one of the things is it feels like a risky move, but it wasn't. It was very coordinated from CLG. And if you look at the situation, Caitlyn was over the wall. She only came in at the very last second, so she wasn't in any danger. Lee Sin, he could have shielded out, so he wasn't in any danger. The only one in danger was Loco, but he had his flash up, which means he could have just gotten out of there fairly easily. And they could have left the dragon at full health. So it was... The reason they could do it is because they had vision in the mid lane. And you saw Big Fat and Hotshot both were pushing aggressively to force Fnatic to keep vision on them. And so by having that vision, they knew, all right, the second they leave, if that Baron is low enough where they could maybe steal it, then you need to finish it or get the hell out of there. And so they had that vision advantage. There's another turret going down. It was already low, but it's going to be tough for Fnatic to defend. One of the benefits of Fnatic's team is they have great wave clearing. They have 3 champions that are just some of the strongest in the game at clearing those minion waves, so that will stall out CLG a little bit. But another concern is that Galio, one of his strengths is he can dive onto turrets very effectively and force fights.
Cyanide actually having to burn the flash. There's Galio ultimate coming in. Idle Duran is going to absolutely tear through all of Fnatic. End rating dropping extremely low. Cyanide actually getting very low as well. Double's going to pick up a kill, but in the meantime, GG's in a 1v1 versus Orianna.
Yeah, there's the TF ultimate as well. Chouster comes into him, the Orianna ult trying to take him down, and then Chouster shielding away as Soaz was about to kill him, but there's another stun. They get a triple kill on Doublelift, and they take down a number of the members. Just a brutal lead now, 8k gold on CLG. Really impressive play, and that's the concern. Like, that's one of the things that Galio pick really gives them, which something like Jax wouldn't necessarily, is the fact that it gives them a hard engage. It lets them say, hey, we are going to fight right now, because otherwise Fnatic would be able to stall underneath those turrets, and now with the shield from both Lee Sin and Galio, he can tank the minions, so it doesn't matter if they kill out those minion waves. They take down the turret, they're going to get an inhibitor here before the rest of them respawn.
Not to mention the fact that because they were pushing the mid lane and because they were able to corral Fnatic in that area of their jungle, the team kind of got split. Galio popped the ultimate and he hit 3 key members, but Orianna and Jace, 2 of the members that Fnatic's really going to need to wind up winning them a team fight in that engagement, were completely split off by Lee Sin and Twisted Fate. 2 champions, Twisted Fate, as you said, extremely squishy kind of champion. You don't think of him as being someone that zones out and keeps enemies out of a team fight, but just because of the positioning in the jungle, the way that Hotshot initiated that fight, it was masterful by CLG.
And Fnatic, as we said earlier, they have a team comp that can win any coordinated fight if they have the positioning, if they protect Reckless, and then have that front line and zoning with all their champions. But like you said, when CLG is striking right at the heart of them, and they were all out of position, they didn't have the best vision because CLG has had complete map control. That map control allowed CLG to catch Fnatic. And it was a really impressive play. Now it's scary because Hotshot, he still has his teleport up. So not only do they have this gold lead, and not only can they, force down a turret, they have the option of split pushing, though I think they'll probably just group and know that Hotshot can zone them off of the turret with the threat of a Galio ult.
He's also acquired that Frozen Heart now, so when they get into another
tank
team
those turrets so easily.
It's gonna be super, super deadly. Aegis of the Legion been acquired, Death Cap completed on GG as well.
Once you get that first big armor item, like, you go just from dying in like 5 hits to the turret to just never dying. Like, it's just insane how easily he's going to be able to tank that turret now.
When he gets in team fights, he's also starting to level up the Bulwark. Actually, Resolute Smite, Galio's Q that does the AoE damage in the slow, being one of the last spells he's leveling up. He's gotten super tanky and super utility for his team. 4 points in Bulwark, maxing that Righteous Gust, as we mentioned earlier on.
And he's not expecting to need the damage. He doesn't need the damage that Galio has sometimes when you max the Q and the E. Instead, he just wants to set up the rest of his team, and they're far enough ahead that they can shut him down as long as he's tanky enough and has enough CC for that front line.
You want to talk about Fnatic's wave clear? Look at the double lift Q and the Twisted Fate Q just completely annihilating all the minions there as they just start wailing away on the tower. Chouster now, he thinks he's on 5. He thinks he's Alex Each come from behind.
This. Jace isn't with them, so if he gets in there, he could knock him back into Galio, but they really have to watch out for that.
He's got the ward there to safeguard Iron Will combination too, so he can get into the fight very easily, save the Sonic Wave Resonating Strike to stick onto a target and potentially Dragon's Rage it back into his own team. Look at all the traps set up by Doublelift in front of this tower as well. If Lee Sin's going to be able to come in from behind and knock someone forward, they're absolutely going to die. But here comes the engagement for Fnatic. Shockwave has been burned. The Void Ooze goes off from Calm, but they're not able to move forward, due in part to how afraid they are of CLG and that Galio ultimate, and all these traps that they're starting to clear out right now.
And now that Orianna ultimate is down, and that is the key for CLG. That means that they are significantly stronger than Fnatic right now. Not even in like how much gold and everything they have, but it's their opportunity to force a fight with that Orianna ultimate down. And Doublelift able to cleanse and flash out of there instantly. Chouster, he's up top. He wants that top, but he's a little concerned because he's 3 levels ahead of him. He doesn't want to go down. All he wants to do is slowly absorb him here, but he's actually going for it. TF, he's coming up, so Big Fetty's coming with Chouster, taking the turret for a moment, but they should be able to grab Soaz, and that 4v5 advantage could be exactly what CLG needs to seal the deal on this game.
Not to mention the fact they're going to get that tower so they can apply some pressure onto this top lane. Kalma actually decided to go back. He's going to want to defend against this. There's a 3v3 on the tower. Hotshot's here. He has the ultimate available. Doublelift is all the damage CLG might need to take out 1 or 2 members of Fnatic here.
And so you see Kog'Maw, he's forced to come from the top lane. Big Bet's a little bit low, but they're pushing 2 lanes at once. The ward shield from Chowster and the slow really quickly zoning Reckless. And look at how low that tower is. The bot turret has gone down for Fnatic, and Fnatic was completely zoned off that tower. They just backed off, and now they're pushed right into their base.
Twisted Fate has acquired a Sheen. He's going to be getting his Lich Bane very soon. And once you have a Lich Bane, Twisted Fate, a Caitlyn that's this far ahead with Infinity Edge, Phantom Dancer, and now going for a Last Whisper, and Galio, who's going to be able to split push all day. Every single tower in Fnatic's base is at extreme risk at all points in time right now.
The damage output from Caitlyn right now is absolutely absurd, and it's going to be almost impossible for Fnatic to shut down Caitlyn in these fights, and almost impossible for them to live through her damage. So, you know, it's really like a no-win situation for Fnatic, but if they can slowly wear down CLG, slowly poke them down, and then they really just need to win a couple of big fights. Like, they need to make a big play happen. They needed to make a big play happen a while ago, actually, because they've just slowly been falling behind from the perfect play from CLG. But if they can catch CLG out of position in one big AoE fight and let Kog do his work, they might have an opportunity, but it's going to be tough with this Baron keeping him alive.
And I don't think this Baron is the chance that they want to go for this engagement, because Hotshot's coming in here, he gets the Idol Duran down, all 3 members of Fnatic here are going to get caught in that one. Xpeke has to burn the flash, as does Cyanide. Reckless coming in now, good crescendo, there's the command, Shockwave double getting down extremely low, they take him out, that's going to be a lot of CLG's damage.
Yeah, but the rest of CLG is pretty full right now. They're really tanky. There's the ultimate from Caitlyn trying to come in on Cyanide. Not quite able to get him, but Chowster still looking for blood. They do force them all off. Double lift almost went down, and that would have been huge for Fnatic. But even so, you saw all the rest of them were low. Soaz actually getting the slow and knocking back Chowster, trying to get him to his team. He's kicked back into the team from Chowster, and they're going to be able to drop him. He drops very quickly. So CLG 4v5, they're still able to bully them around. And not only that, they get the inhibitor, and Double Lift, he healed all the way up from those minions. So by the time he reaches the rest of his team, he's ready to go, and they can push in on the Nexus.
I think Fnatic's really grasping at straws here. That was a really good engagement by Baron, but I think it wasn't the place and time for them to do it. What they needed to do is they needed to fight underneath one of their own towers, have that little bit of extra security, protection, and damage. They wanted to get CLG, they needed to play defensive and just buy time for Kog'Maw. Unfortunately, the only big ticket item he has is the Phantom Dancer, which a lot of that, well, a good portion of that is being nullified by the fact that Hotshot GG has acquired that Frozen Heart so early on in the game. So Kog'Maw not really dealing as much damage as he wants to. You know, they've also acquired a Zeke's Herald on the side from CLG.NA, so Lee Sin's going to be loving that one. Even to a certain extent, Twisted Fate's going to like that because he is a bit of an auto-attack dependent AP champion. Caitlyn, of course, going to be absolutely digging the Zeke's Herald on that side.
And let's be honest on this game, it's been over for like 10 minutes now. I mean, CLG with 2 inhibitors down, have basically, you know, sealed the deal. But the only thing that would really bring Fnatic back to this game is a massive throw from CLG. They have the team to take advantage of it. So Fnatic, you know, they can definitely take advantage of that situation, but the likelihood is non-existent, basically. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of changes Fnatic's going to want to do coming into the second game to try and shut down this early aggression from CLG, because they just went all out and bullied Fnatic.
I think the one mistake they made was letting Chowster get Lee Sin, so I'm potentially going to be seeing 100%. A Lee Sin ban coming in here.
Yeah, but he has a large number of champions that he will play, but that Lee Sin is definitely his most aggressive jungler.
The one thing is you nullify the Lee Sin, and all of a sudden Twisted Fate becomes one of the more proactive champions on the map, and there is potential that you can just shut down a roaming Twisted Fate. The fact that, as you mentioned earlier in the matchup, Chowster and GG have been roaming together so effectively recently, they just completely obliterated Fnatic's laning.
And Chowster actually getting into the back of the team, but they take down Cho'Gath very quickly, as well as Xpeke. He's going down. Double kill, triple kill. Soaz going to go down. There's the quadra kill. The only one left is Reckless, but the TFL isn't going to get the stun to get him in range. Big Bet a little bit too low. Reckless underneath the turret can double if get it underneath the fountain. He gets the pentakill under the fountain. Oh my god, CLG just like taking advantage of it there. There's been so many pentakills this tournament. Double if wanted to get his own.
He just really wanted to even tower.
Is that number 2? That's number 2.
I think that's number 2 that Double Lift's gotten, but CLG blowing the AoE ultimates on the Nexus towers. We all know that doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. They take down the Nexus, and they take an impressive 15-2 kill victory, 14,000 gold win over Fnatic, who beat TPA 2-0.
Yeah, and I have to imagine this is one of CLG's stronger comps. When they're running that Caitlyn Nunu, I mean, everyone knows how unbelievable Double Lift is on Vayne. He just completely carries late game. He's just a god, basically. I mean, he's one of those god tier ADs. But having the Caitlyn Nunu for that early aggression, Charleston and Big Fat comboing perfectly. It's really like bringing Big Fat back into his game. And then Hotshot, you know, he did his own too. He did what his team needed him to do. He was able to lane comfortably for the most part, and then come in on team fights and force ults that allowed CLG to just outright win the game. And it was really impressive play. Though at the same time, that TF, Fnatic game 1 against TPA, they beat TF. You know, they had toys playing TF, and they were able to counter it out with a quick kill from Katarina. Katarina, I believe, was banned in that first game. Yes. But yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. But we'll see. You know, if Fnatic can make something, make some magic happen in game number 2.
Well, one of the things I'd like to point out is just go back to the score screen really quick, because Jace offered a lot of utility as well as Orianna to this team comp from Fnatic, but Sona had 4K gold in an almost 30-minute game. Sona had no items whatsoever. There's no Shirelias. There's no Aegis of the Legion on this. Oh, they did actually acquire one on side objectives.
And that's the thing. If you look at the CS, you know, you're like, oh, 222, man, Cog was farming. I mean, he's out-farmed by Caitlyn, but you look at the other lanes. XPK, he won his. I mean, he didn't win his lane, but he out-CS'd Big Fat. Jace, he out-CS'd Hotshot. You know, they had these massive farm leads. But that wasn't why CLG won. It was because of the objectives. And that's what that's indicative of, the 4K on the support. It was because Fnatic didn't get a single objective the entire game, basically. You know, so the lack of those objectives compared with CLG, who was just constantly pushing and constantly applying pressure, is what, you know, gave CLG such a massive gold lead.
You said it yourself. The scary part is how well Chowster and GG are working together now that Chowster's moved into the jungle. So we're going to have to see, do they take out Lee Sin? Because you mentioned before, they got rid of they were able to deal with Twisted Fate from TPA, and that's Toys, who's one of the best mid laners in the entire world at this point in time. So I think the main piece of that cog was Lee Sin being able to be so proactive on the map, but maybe not even just Lee Sin being proactive. As you mentioned, Chowster had such a wide variety of champions he could play in that roaming kind of role. You eliminate Lee Sin, okay, well, he's not going to have the same kind of mobility as a champion like Lee Sin. He might not be able to set up as much, but he could play someone that's a little bit more scary, like a Maokai who can lock down that mid lane, or maybe even someone else along the lines of, I don't even really know who, but when GG was roaming by himself, Lee Sin was holding down that mid lane. So any sort of jungler that's going to be key and want that a little bit of extra farm to get that item, like the Aegis of the Legion he picked up for his team in the middle of the game that really helped turn around some of those team fights, it's going to be completely scary. Fnatic's going to have to learn how to deal with not Lee Sin, not Twisted Fate, but how to deal with the Chowster and Big Fat LP synergy.
Yeah, that's 100% the case. But we had seen, you know, they were able to take down TPA, and TPA is very well known for the synergy between Toys and Little Balls. So, you know, when they've already taken down that kind of aggressive roaming from a team, you have to expect they're ready to do it again. And that's what we're going to check out, guys. Once again, big thanks to, you know, all sponsors and everyone who support us. LOLpro.com, we have a lot of curse people here, you know, that are helping out, and it's been fantastic. Pluto
giving out these awesome wristbands.
Incredible. Yeah, the wristbands are cool.
Die.
But LOLpro.com, if you want to check that out, it's a great guide site. I actually use it myself occasionally because you can just get onto the champions real quick. Championselect.net, though, you know, we've seen some unusual picks so far this tournament. And, you know, if you're looking for how to counter them out or whatnot, they actually have a really cool thing where for each champion they show like statistics for how they do against other matchups and, you know, which champions you should pick in certain matchups and whatnot. So definitely give them a try too as well, guys. Thank you for watching. We'll be right back. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back with game number 2 of CLG.NA versus Fnatic. This is IPL 5.